You have the SEC getting ready to approve multiple altcoin ETFs. So we have these huge milestones. Look, I think be prepared for some sort of blow off top. It may happen in Q4 or it may bleed into Q1 2026. So that's something to pay attention to if you're looking to take profits, right? You don't want to have the bull market come and pass you by and you ride this down into the bear market. I know a lot of people get upset by that, but this is the time to pay attention.
Today's episode is brought to you by Trustless Media, pioneering the first way to bid, win, and trade ad space as NFTs in your favorite creators. You can bid now to unlock ads just like this in Coinage or other premium creators like The Rollup or Thinking Crypto at a 90% discount. Head to auction.trustless.media to bid on ads today and even get paid if you get outbid. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Coinage. I'm your host, Zach Guzman. As we have Bitcoin crossing into a new all-time high just a day ago, we are watching the charts as Bitcoin moved north of 124,000. I'm not sure how many people saw this move coming necessarily, but maybe you did if you understand and believe in what is the month affectionately known as Uptober. And now I should correct myself, because if you zoom in on this one like I'm doing there, more than $125,000 now. So a lot to watch and be excited about there on the Bitcoin front. And of course, it's not just Bitcoin, it's also ETH, as we got some big staking news to discuss today, as well as a big entrance into taking on Robinhood and Coinbase from the likes of none other than the Novogratz-led Galaxy. So a lot to discuss and dig into. And happy to have on today's show a friend of the show over at Thinking Crypto, the host over there, Tony Edward, on Coinage with us today. Tony, it's good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Happy Uptober.
Happy Uptober, man. It's quite the start, and I guess maybe we shouldn't be too surprised, but I don't know what you're thinking right here, Tony. I mean, like, people are feeling good, north of 125, all-time highs. You got Tom Lee doing Tom Lee things and buying more ETH as well. I mean, where do you put us at?
You know, it's so funny, Zach. I was thinking about this just last night and how cyclical the markets are. You know, the end of August into September, it was brutal, Zach. People were feeling a lot of fear. Oh, no, it's over. This is the top of the market. The government shutdown, this and that, all the narratives. But when you have this extreme fear and you have the bottoming out of the markets, it's like a beach ball being pushed underwater, right? It just pops. And we're seeing that pop right now because the sentiment was so in the gutter. And look, the whales and the market makers love that. They love to play with people's emotions, right? Get you to panic sell, then get you to FOMO back in, right? It's a cyclical pattern. And of course, seasonality is on our side, with Q4 usually very good for crypto and stocks and much more. And look, I've been saying it for the past 2 years. We are in a macro bull market for all assets. Precious metals, we're seeing gold, silver, and all these things ripping. The stock market, of course, and crypto. And what's not usually talked about a lot, but real estate. The mortgage industry right now is almost dead, right? A lot of people are not really selling because they have low rates and things like that. But housing prices are going up. It's all following global liquidity. And when you zoom out on the macro, you just see the bigger picture.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would echo all of that. And maybe one of those guys who knows, more about macro than anybody is Tom Lee. And I do want to note that he also is back to doing Tom Lee things, as I said, buying more ETH. And we just had a chat with him at Korea Blockchain Week. Tony, I would love to get your take on kind of what he told us over there, which was that he's got a huge price target, perhaps not surprising to see today, that he bought close to 180,000 ETH, close to about 820 million at prices today. So another big purchase from Tom at BitMine. But want to play just a little bit of what we heard from him at Korea Blockchain Week. Another classic Tom Lee price prediction that some are calling ludicrous, but we got to play it anyways and get your take on the other side. Here's what Tom told us. Take a listen.
Some perspective, in 2017, Bitcoin was under 1,000, and we thought it would get to 25,000 by 2022, but could get to 100,000 a little bit later. Of course, 8 years later, Bitcoin's over 100,000. To us, an intermediate level for Ethereum is matching Bitcoin's network value. So I think a couple years from now, so that would be 60,000 ETH.
So 60,000 ETH, Tony, is what we're hearing from Tom Lee. And of course, if you look at the charts, it's got to cross 5K first is really what we got to see happen. But I mean, what's your reaction to that?
Tom is bullish. Obviously, he's going to talk his bags, but I don't think he's far off, man, because we're seeing incredible adoption of Ethereum by enterprises. Just an example, Swift is going to build on the layer 2 Linea, which a layer 2 on top of Ethereum. So ETH layer 1 is serving as that security layer, and there's so many building happening on that layer 1 plus the layer 2s. So you have the network effects, right? Metcalfe's law at play here. Plus, you have these digital asset treasury companies that are seeing ETH as a better play than Bitcoin because you have the naturally built-in staking. So you get a natural yield. So let's say when the bear market rolls around, the ETH treasury holders can still earn. They can still have income coming in that from that perspective, versus Bitcoin may not be able to because the price is down and we're seeing a lot more volatility. So I don't think Tom is off there. Maybe he's a little bit exaggerated, right? But I think ETH, man, there's so much runway here because of the adoption.
The crazy thing too is that I was sitting on stage and I almost had like deja vu, like a flashback, because I've been interviewing Tom for like, I don't know, my decade in doing financial media. But it was I remember when he said the first time that he saw Bitcoin crossing 100K, and back then I think we were trading at like, maybe Bitcoin was at like 1,000, and so it wasn't too nuts to think about him being right again. Like, I've seen it before, and I remember how ludicrous it sounded at the time, and it almost felt the same being on stage and hearing like 60K. It's like, all right, Tom Lee doing what he always does. But I don't know. It's not that crazy. And in particular, I want to flag the news today from Grayscale, too, because we had been waiting, and I know you've been chatting with Hester Peirce. There's another great interview on Thinking Crypto about kind of when this moment would come. And now Grayscale debuting staking through their ETFs, the Ethereum trust that they run. I wonder what that means for you. I should note that they're also doing it for the Solana Trust as well, so that's important to note. But what does that maybe signal to you in terms of what you know from kind of how the SEC is tackling this, and kind of what that unlocks for ETH too?
Yeah, this is certainly a landmark moment because ETFs and ETPs, they're more accessible to the mainstream, retirement accounts, and much more. Not everyone is aware that, okay, I can go on Coinbase, I can buy some Ether Solana, and I can put it to stake. But they are familiar with Fidelity and BlackRock and some of these other platforms. And they know the ETF routes. And maybe their investment advisor is telling them, hey, you can get exposure to crypto ETFs versus, hey, go on Coinbase and buy, right? So this opens up a lot of capital to flow into Ethereum and Solana. A lot of people are looking for the passive income, the continued yield generation, and these respective blockchains have that natively built in staking component, which is really great. And, as I said earlier, regardless of if it's a bear or bull market, you will continue to earn. So I think this is significant. I think it will really catapult the inflows into the Ethereum spot ETFs. I think we saw what Bitcoin's ETFs have done, right? Breaking records and much more. Watch the Ethereum inflows into the ETFs. I think this is going to be the game changer as, the big players get it as well. BlackRock, Fidelity, and much more. But this is huge. And one of the things, Zach, I think you're probably aware of, the banks are trying to stop yield from stable coins. I'm sure they're not going to like this. So they're going to try to maybe launch their own ETFs or try to partner with some of these ETF issuers.
Yeah, I mean, pairing it all too. I just think it was kind of the thesis originally for why Tom Lee launched BitMine or joined as chairman, in terms of his thesis around Wall Street embracing the technology to not just tokenize what we've seen with stablecoins, but now also stocks and bonds and the whole world of finance basically coming on chain. And the staking component of that, I suppose, also enables some of those players to at least lock in some stable yield, while they also may potentially be scooping some up. So there's a lot at play here. But I guess to that theme of tokenization and kind of seeing the investment world collide with everything else in crypto, it is interesting to see the move from one big player, Galaxy, also coming out and basically throwing themselves into the arena next to the Robinhoods and the Coinbases of the world, and I suppose also the Fidelities of the world too, because Galaxy One is basically positioning itself to be a unified platform for crypto and stock trading to users in all U.S. states, which, Tony, I know you know this, that's always a pain to kind of get through from a regulatory perspective. And accredited investors can also earn 8% APY on a note offered by Galaxy as well. So I don't know. I don't know what you make of this, just because Galaxy to me has always been one of those those players in the space that's mostly looking at institutions, mostly looking at the idea of only operating that space, now kind of inching a little bit in the other direction and combining crypto and equities in one platform.
Yeah, look, competition is great for the market and consumers, right? I'm always a big fan of more participants coming in. With that said, Galaxy, they've got an uphill battle here, Zach, because you have some behemoths. I mean, Robinhood, Coinbase, the brands are so huge, right? I'm a user of Robinhood and I use Coinbase, but I've been using Robinhood for a long time. So I think Galaxy, they're going to have to put a lot of marketing dollars to educate people and to say, hey, here's why we are great for retail, because like you said, their pedigree is in the institutional side. So let's see what they're able to do. But maybe with Mike Novogratz's savvy background in Wall Street, his connections, maybe they're going to be able to do some sort of partnership where they get some great distribution, because distribution is a key, right? In addition to branding. So let's see what they're able to come up with. But they're going to have an uphill battle if they want to take some market share from Robinhood or Coinbase.
Yeah, and I guess also too, I'm just looking at the market's reaction to Galaxy stock as well in today's session, early session, up 8%. When we look at the Galaxy chart, of course, this is one, I don't know if you feel the same way, but Galaxy Digital and what Novogratz has built over there, just to me kind of seems like, I know that these comparisons get made all the time, but the Warren Buffett of crypto, and what Novogratz has built at Galaxy, just in terms of like the staking business. They've obviously made huge moves into data centers to kind of also play in the AI boom, and now have Galaxy One making their debut. So that's another thing. I don't know if you have any thoughts on kind of the way that that's gone, because you mentioned Robinhood. That stock, it's been wild to witness that, but it's like everything, the financial super app is now finally here, I think, with like prediction market stocks, crypto. I don't know, it's all blending.
Yeah, everybody's in a race to create the super app, right? Coinbase, Robin, the future. I should say, let me give credit to the person who I heard this from. She's at Franklin Templeton, Sandy Call. So she said, we're moving away from the account-based setup to the wallet-based setup. So the future essentially is everybody has smartphones. We're all connected, right? You're going to have this app that controls your digital identity, your bank account, your investments, and much more. That's where we're headed. It's going to be powered by blockchain, encrypted. So it's pretty exciting, and everybody's in the race here. I think folks recognize that. I think even Mercado Bitcoin in Brazil, I read just yesterday, they're looking to create a super app for that region.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting just to, like I said, Robinhood stock, if you look at that chart, up 273% year to date. It's up more than Coinbase. Despite all the progress that Coinbase had made, as we're talking about Galaxy One, all the progress Coinbase had made in terms of the custody side of the business around all the ETFs that launched, something that Robinhood has not necessarily made inroads in. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to kind of see how this market is putting certain weights on certain verticals in crypto and monetizing it. Seems like it's a little bit easier maybe to slap on some multiples around prediction markets and Robinhood there, but I assume, by the way, that Coinbase would be making moves on it too. But Tony, you did mention marketing opportunities. And I think that's a good thing to maybe end on here as we run through all of our pieces that we're chatting through, because you and I are partnering on this little bad boy over here. We want to get more people to be bidding on ad space. We launched this tool that lets anybody bid on ad space as an NFT to get spots in creators like Coinage and you over at Thinking Crypto. So I want to give a shout out to this because, there's not a lot of quality media players, I think, in the crypto space. It's become a little bit crowded, but love what you've been doing over there at Thinking Crypto. You get a lot of great interviews and we're playing catch up. We always try and keep pace. And now anybody can bid on the ad space in your newsletter or add in here for video components as well, just as we do. So I just got to say, great work on what you're doing, and excited to kind of be rocking this with you, man.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. Thank you for having me be a participant. We were talking before the recording. I'm a big believer in this technology, so it's great to kind of put my money where my mouth is and actually put it to work, right? And integrate it into what we're doing. And obviously there's more opportunities, but I think this is a great first start. I think this is the future of like the publisher advertiser model, honestly, with blockchain and NFTs and much more.
I think so. And I think, obviously, again, I think we're going to be adding a lot more. It's early yet. We only just launched this last week. And the idea of bidding, we partnered with GBM. People can bid on this. If you get outbid, GBM's kind of cool. You win money for bidding as well. So even if you lose, you win, which has been fun to see. So, I think these ones are running until tomorrow. So if you're watching this, there's still time to bid on the ad space, not just in Thinking Crypto. I know you do great video stuff, but also in the newsletter. So shout out to both of those opportunities there. Tony, I know we didn't have too much time, but in terms of everything else you're watching, is there anything else that you'd call our viewers' attentions to, given all the headlines and things that you've seen?
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be an exciting Q4. We got after the government shutdown, the Clarity Act, which I believe will pass by December. Government moves slow and we have all these things happening. You have the SEC getting ready to approve multiple altcoin ETFs. They, as we mentioned earlier, started with the staking. So we have these huge milestones. And look, I think be prepared for some sort of blow off top. It may happen in Q4 or it may bleed into Q1 2026. So that's something to pay attention to if you're looking to take profits, right? You don't want to have the bull market come and pass you by and you ride this down into the bear market. I know a lot of people get upset by that, but this is the time to pay attention.
Well, it's awesome, and it's cool to see. I know, you've been in this space for a really long time, and so you've seen these cycles before, and so I always love having your insights with us on Coinage. For everybody else, if you haven't yet, go check out Thinking Crypto and follow Tony as well on Twitter. Tony, can't thank you enough, man. Good to see you.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, good to see you as well.
Right on. Tony Edward there at Thinking Crypto. If you haven't yet, also go check out the auction tool to bid on ad space there. It's kind of cool. The ability to kind of support all these creators on chain, and also, as we're going to be rolling out, the ability to trade ad space as well at our tool auction.trustless.media. Want to move on with the show though too, because as we mentioned off the top, Bitcoin hitting a all-time high, and just want to check in on prices over there north of 125,000, now holding around that level as the back and forth continues between who's going to lead, Bitcoin, ETH. Excited to bring on the co-founder over at Ledn, one of those leaders in the space in terms of unlocking your Bitcoin, leveraging your Bitcoin, figuring out ways you can start to use your Bitcoin. So excited to welcome to the show the co-founder of Ledn, Mauricio Di Bartolomeo. Thank you so much for being on here, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Zach. Thanks for having me on. Exciting.
Yeah.
It's always exciting to chat on all-time high days.
It is exciting to chat on all-time high days. By the way, we were trying to figure out where exactly the name is from. Mauricio, where are you from? I should ask that first.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Venezuela, which
That's
is
what it
where
is.
my dad's Italian, my parents are Italian, so my name has an Italian, like Mauricio Di Bartolomeo typically would be a very Italian name. Italians tend to spell Maurizio with a Z, and the
Yes.
Latin American way tends to be with a C. And so it's a bit of a Latin Americanized first name with an Italian last name. But,
I always gotta know. I gotta ask. We gotta know. My producer, who's Brazilian, just got back from Italy, so he was completely tripping over himself trying to figure this out. But I think that's important context, because as we set up, there are so many things that are colliding here, Mauricio, in terms of, I think, people waking up to what they can do. Before it was just buy and hold. I think this cycle, the exciting piece of it is really figuring out ways to start to leverage and unlock these assets. And interestingly, I think you guys have really doubled down on Bitcoin versus other crypto assets. I mean, talk to me about how things have gone for you, what you're seeing at Ledn, and kind of the way that we're healthily, I think, growing this cycle.
Oh man, so much to pull on from that one, but great question. I think what I would say is Ledn is Ledn is growing faster than it's ever grown. We have more clients than we've ever had. We have more assets in the platform than we ever have. We have some really incredible announcements coming out for the last 2 or 3 months to finish off the year. But what I will say, I think, is driving this phenomenon, or this current one of the things that's driving this rally is this idea that people have woken up to this concept that you don't sell your Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a great long-term investment. And as a testament to that, what our product does is it allows you to borrow dollars using that Bitcoin as collateral, so you don't have to sell it. And what I love about all-time highs is that every single person that's used our products responsibly since we've been around, mathematically, will have benefited from our product by not having sold that Bitcoin at 100, by not having sold that Bitcoin at 80, by not having sold that Bitcoin at 60. And instead, when they needed cash to make a new investment or upgrade their lifestyle, in many cases, people build up significant wealth in their digital portfolios. But when they go to the bank because they want to get a bigger house, the bank shuts the door down, shuts the door in their face. And so Bitcoiners have for a long time been blocked out of traditional financial services that are available to people that own, say, stocks or gold, right? And these services, what Ledn offers is basically a product that's as old as time, which is a dollar loan backed by an asset-backed loan, but it is basically using the world's greatest collateral to do that. And because of this, Bitcoin has many, many advantages, and it allows us to service clients in over 100 countries and treat them in the same way, meaning they get the same rates, they get the same quality of service, they get the same everything because their collateral is the same. And I think that's revolutionary, and not a lot of people grasp how transformative this really is when in the context of asset-backed loans.
Yeah, I mean, in the context of everything that we're seeing too, I mean, talk to me about the decision to really focus. Is it fair to say only on Bitcoin? I'm pretty sure that's what I witnessed, what I saw in some of your guys' clips. It's like Bitcoin or bust here in lending, because you can obviously lend with a bunch of different crypto assets, but why Bitcoin only?
Bitcoin, because, well, many reasons, but the one is it is an asset that has a very clear value proposition, which is Bitcoin is a better version of digital gold. It is finite, it is scarce, it is digital, and it is not trying to do anything else. It wants to be money. It wants to be a digital reserve asset. And that makes it uniquely special to be treated as collateral. When you look at the universe of other crypto assets, they are not trying to be a native reserve asset. If you look at something like Ethereum, even something like Solana, they're trying to be rails for stablecoins. They're trying to be the rails for real world assets. They're trying to create these weird tokenomics as to why somebody should be holding the asset over the long term. But the reality is that the supply of those assets is variable. There could be more, there could be less tomorrow. It's very hard to track. It's very hard to run a node. And because they're trying to do so many things, the message is confusing to people. And the other piece of that is there's this big conception that I think is not it's not a wrong idea, but there's no real mechanism by which people can, because a lot of people say these are going to be the rails for stablecoins, okay? And value is going to accrue to these assets. The question I asked to these people is, yes, sure, you can, when you're about to send a stablecoin, you use a drop down and it shows you 11, 20, 30 different chains where you can send that stablecoin through, right? And they'll say, this one's 2 cents, this one's 3 cents, this one's 1 cent. And it becomes incredibly commoditized. So you end up choosing one. But the reality is that the blockchains aren't what's giving you the network effect. The network effect is at the wallet level. It's the nodes within the network. And all these nodes are rail agnostic. So when I'm sending you Tether, I could choose Tron, I could choose ETH, I could choose Cardano, I could choose whatever I want. And the second I send you that transfer, I'm done. I have no real desire to own Cardano if I send it to you by Cardano, Tron if I send it to you from Tron. I just use it as a rail. One analogy that I use, or that I like to use, and it's not a perfect analogy, but it's basically a highway. Okay, like think of it as a place that allows you to get from point A to point B. You will use whichever road has the least traffic, whichever road gets you there faster, whichever road is more scenic, if that's what you're into. But you won't want to go own the highway. Does that make sense? Like you got from A to B. Sure. That's it.
Well, right? I think it is interesting. I think it's interesting to think about too, because obviously, with what you guys are building at Ledn, there's a lot of different ways to kind of create loans and use collateral. And certainly I think I'd love to get your take on kind of like the change since you guys began building it out in the competitive set, because earlier on in the show, we were just talking about Galaxy One launching and this idea of traditional finance blending with crypto native products and kind of what that world's going to look like. And increasingly, with everything being tokenized, it's almost weird to think about. And I don't know, kind of scares me to actually think about it. The idea of like, if prediction markets become tokenized and your positions in these prediction markets can become tokenized, to me, it only seems like a matter of time before prediction market positions could be used as collateral in something else, and all of these things starting to build, and especially if you get Wall Street involved, shit's going to hit the fan at some point. So I do think drawing the line somewhere is necessary, but how do you make that call, I guess, as a founder in I guess, giving up some opportunity to maybe reach people where they are and using collateral they want to use?
Yeah, so the hardest thing in this industry is knowing what to say no to, because there are so many shiny objects that come across your come across your path, right?
Mm-hmm.
An example would be in the early, back when we started Ledn. Ledn has been going on since 2018, so we've been issuing loans since 2018. And back then, we had people ask us to add, Litecoin. Why don't you add Litecoin? Why don't you add Dash? Why don't you add Ripple? Why don't you add all these second, third, fourth assets? And we said, no, we don't understand the long-term value proposition for those assets. We do understand the long-term value proposition for Bitcoin, and we feel very comfortable. In fact, I learned how to mine Bitcoin in hyperinflation. I saw how Venezuelans were using Bitcoin to regain financial independence. My brother had to flee the country, and he was able to take his Bitcoin with him and nothing else. So I have lived through and I have seen what Bitcoin can do. And for that reason, I am I have incredible conviction into the long-term future of Bitcoin. And I know that what it's trying to do and nothing else. All these other assets don't have the same clarity, right? What would have happened if we would have allowed our clients to take Dash-backed loans or Litecoin-backed loans? How would they have done? They wouldn't have done so well, right? Then fast forward to the next wave, right around 2019, it was the summer of DeFi, right? And so everybody was asking, oh, Ledn, why don't you integrate back into DeFi? Why don't you, create a yield-bearing token? Why don't you do some more of this DeFi stuff? And again, we didn't see the value prop in those assets. And what ended up happening was a complete wipeout of Terra Luna. If you look at the native tokens of a lot of these DeFi platforms, they're down a large amount. And then the next wave that came were the NFTs. And everybody said, oh, hey, Ledn, why don't you do NFT-backed loans? Why don't you guys take NFTs as collateral? What would have happened if we would have given our clients punk-backed loans? They would be broke, right? And so the idea is that we want to do things that we believe are going to benefit everyone that uses our services in the long term. There were companies, I'm not going to name them, but there were companies that are out there at the peak of the Dogecoin cycle that launched yield-bearing Doge accounts, encouraging people to buy Doge and hold this Doge to earn yield on it. The reality is they launched that product.
What's interesting is that, like, not to cut you off, but it is interesting to think about that with the DAT boom, we're not too far off. I'm pretty sure they're like publicly trading. I'm pretty sure I saw, at least just out of Korea Blockchain Week, saw people running around talking about kind of DATs essentially for a lot of that. And I don't know. I'm curious to get your take too. Having survived all this, I mean, obviously what Saylor's doing is in Bitcoin, but now we've seen it spill over.
That's opportunism. That is incredibly opportunistic. What are some of these DAT companies doing? And if you ask me, I'm not naming names, but if you're looking at a very illiquid asset that largely or likely has a large short position built up on it, let's look at, I don't know, maybe ETH is a good example, but maybe not ETH. So that applies to Solana, that applies to Ripple, that applies to Doge. Okay,
yeah.
You have infinitely thin bid order books. Okay, you will acquire a large position, right, through derivatives or such, ahead of your announcement, right? Then you will go and you will announce that you're launching a big purchase of, asset Y treasury company, and you announce it at end of day on a Friday. What happens? Over the weekend, order books are thin as can be, and those who are short or those who want to get out of the position will start basically closing their positions. They'll create a short squeeze to the upside, right? Then Monday will come up, market open, the token that you supposedly already bought is up, 30-40%, your stock pops. I don't believe, and the answer is I don't know for a fact, but I don't believe that any of these companies would sit there and say Dogecoin to the moon, right? I'm going to hold my Dogecoin position for 30 years. No, what they'll likely do is they'll hedge that long position and they'll wait until everything starts crumbling down and their numbers will be fine and everybody that bought will be confused, but they would have made a lot of money, right? And so I think these are financially engineered, opportunistic attempts to legitimize something that, in my view, do we need a Dogecoin ETF on Wall Street? I don't think so, really. Do we need a Dogecoin?
Yeah, no, I would echo that. There's a lot of DATs that probably aren't necessary at all. But I do think it's encouraging to hear you say it. But I think it also kind of adds a spotlight to kind of the way that you think, which is good because there's a lot. I mean, you didn't want to name them, but I could name them because, I lost money at some of these things too. But like there's the Celsiuses of the world, there's the BlockFis of the world. I feel like for people who are trying to not go that route and add unnecessary risk where they don't need to, it also probably made your job way harder in the crypto winter to kind of delineate like, hey, we're different over here. And I guess that's probably why you'd want to stick with just Bitcoin.
We want to be everything these token casinos are not. Okay. If you want to go speculate on the latest and greatest token that was spun up 20 minutes ago by some kid in this basement, and it's trading on the unregulated exchanges, you're not gonna get that at Ledn, right? At Ledn, when other people were adding crazy tokens, we were adding proof of reserves. We have the longest running proof of reserves program in the industry, and I find that shocking that today, after everything that's happened, we're still one of the only, if not the only lender with proof of reserves today at scale. There are many exchanges that have actually come out and done proof of reserves. And the reason for that is not that clients don't want it. It's that the operators have a nearly impossible time getting a proof of reserves report done because they support 3,000 tokens across 40 products. And it's impossible for them to come together and do a point in time attestation or balance of what everything they hold on behalf of their clients and on their assets, because it's a very difficult task to do, especially when you think about proof of reserves 10 years into this, right? You need to pour proof of reserves at the foundation of the business, which is what we did, so that everything that you build on top of it has to fit the proof of reserves protocol. If you try to do proof of reserves retroactively, you're going to have a very hard time. And so Ledn is not in the business of listing the hottest, newest speculative token. Ledn is in the business of being there and being reliable and having the longest track record in the space and having proof of reserves and giving you peace of mind. That is what we're here to do.
Well, I think it's interesting because maybe even just a few years ago, to be honest with you, I feel like the crypto winter was dark for all of us who were still building in it. So I think it's never very comfortable to go back to those times. But like the client base for like Bitcoin OGs who are looking to leverage it and use it in a way to unlock it to do things might seem small in retrospect, because to do that and to like start to get into that space, there were so many things that probably had to change from crypto winter time, and like crypto being quote unquote seen as a bad thing. But now I feel like, when we fast forward, it was this headline that really got me kind of excited about what's going to come next. It was looking at kind of the idea of starting to use these things and having regulators really start to completely switch night and day. That would start to, I think, create somewhat of an on-ramp surge, I assume, for exactly the client base you're going after, which is people who first need to hold Bitcoin and own Bitcoin to want to start to unlock it using Ledn. So, I mean, talk to me about what you've seen, because obviously this is just a headline here in the U.S., but as you noted, a lot of Bitcoiners around the world. What are you expecting to see now as we enter this next chapter with post-Bitcoin all-time highs, where you see services like those start to pop up and how quickly we can get there?
I think Bitcoin-backed financing, Bitcoin-backed loans are going to be the fastest growing credit vertical over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think it's poised to 2 to 3x in terms of the size of the market within the next 5 years. Why do I say that? At Ledn, people from Buenos Aires, Bogota, Bolivia, you can come to Ledn, Miami, you can come to Ledn, apply for a loan, and get funded in the same day, within hours. You'll get the funding in your bank account. It is much faster, much more efficient, and it will become much more cost effective than borrowing against virtually any other asset in your portfolio. And the beautiful thing about it is that it doesn't only apply to Americans. Americans have historically had access to great financing terms, either unsecured credit or via their properties, so mortgages. Historically, the rest of the world hasn't had access to this world-class collateral that every lender under the world, like under the sun, wants to take. Now they have Bitcoin, and now we can treat people across the world uniformly and equitably, and we can underwrite those loans without caring what their income is, what their credit score is. We just care that they're a compliant citizen, right?
Yeah.
And
on that, where are you seeing maybe more of the growth too? Because obviously we've focused so much here on the U.S., but obviously if you look at it, it's Turkey, Argentina, all these other kind of other countries.
So I'm from Latin America. A lot of our team is from LATAM. We have a big part of our business in Latin America. In number of clients, Latin America, Europe are very big markets for us. The United States is the elephant in every room because they're just such a massive market, and because they have such a huge tailwind and regulatory support for Bitcoin, and also they deal in, on average, much larger ticket sizes than the rest of the world. The United States effectively is one of our biggest, our fastest growing market today. That's not to say other markets aren't growing fast, but I think the United States is benefiting from having a market that understands this regulatory tailwind and a massive base of existing wealth that they are now porting over to this new world. So I think this is going to revolutionize not just the US, but everyone else. And a point I wanted to make on this Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac announcement that you made, because this has people excited about mortgages. There's a big difference between the way a bank underwrites a mortgage and the way Ledn underwrites a Bitcoin-backed loan. A bank gives you a loan based on your after-tax income, and it has to look at your credit score. It has to look at everything else you own, and it has to go appraise the property. It has to do a bunch of things. That process takes weeks, if not months. And at the end of that, Bitcoin is just one more consideration in that underwriting process. So meaning you could have $1 million worth of Bitcoin and you show up to them, but you have zero after-tax income because you're retired, and the bank will say, thank you, goodbye, come back again, right? Like you won't get a loan. I don't care how much Bitcoin you have. At Ledn, all we care about is how much Bitcoin you have. We don't look at your credit score. We don't look at your income. We only look and care to see that you're compliant and then you live in a country where we can service our loans. And if you meet those and you send us the Bitcoin, you get the money in hours. So it's not income-based lending, it's true asset-backed lending. And I think that is one of the greatest benefits that Bitcoin has. And even today, like a mortgage is not an asset-backed loan. A mortgage is it's a loan backed on your income, and they also get the house if you fail, right? Yeah. But if you show anyone here that's listening that's tried to go to a bank and said, I have $2 million worth of Bitcoin, give me a loan, they will relate to this point that I'm making, which is the very next question is, thanks, buddy. Well, how much money do you make a month? Show me your T4, show me your W, whatever. And then you'll say, no, I'm retired. I'm self-employed. And they'll say, we don't do that. And then they come to us, they get the loan in the same day, and then they'll say, I'm never going back to the bank again. Yeah. Right? That's typically the process. And then I wanted to give you one example, because a lot of people use their houses to pay for property, and you talked about the bear market. And I distinctly remember one of our clients came to us November 2021 when the world was collapsing and FTX and Terra Luna was like, everything was falling apart. There was a lot of fear in the market, but he had been with us for many years and he didn't want to sell his Bitcoin. He had to close on a house that weekend. Bitcoin was trading at 16K. Yeah, I remember. So he calls me and he goes, man, I don't love what's happening in the markets right now, but I've been with you guys for years and I don't want to lose this house. This is my dream home. It came up for sale. My wife and I have been hunting and we're getting another baby on the way. It's like, I'm going to take a loan I'm going to buy the house. So he closed a loan. Bitcoin was trading at 16K. He still has that loan today, but by the way, but by not selling that Bitcoin, the collateral value of that he posted with us appreciated by more than what he paid for the house.
Wow.
By not having sold the Bitcoin, right? And this is true for everyone that's used our products today at an all-time high. Mathematically, if you use our product responsibly, you're better off. And Ledn only wins if our clients win. I don't make, if our clients don't get ahead because of using our products, we wouldn't have a business. And so
I think it is interesting to think about that too, because the other hot meta right now is kind of the hyperliquids of the world, the Asters on Binance, kind of these leveraged platforms, perps, and the idea of like how they monetize and liquidations and how you grow a platform like that. I think it is kind of interesting to think about some of the parallels.
We are as far away from a casino or a perp shop, if you want to call them that, as you can possibly get, right? Because people come to us. In fact, a funny anecdote I have from a client is like, he says, "Hey, Mao," because I ask people like, how do you use Ledn, right? Like how do you interact with Ledn relative to other things? He goes, well, it's very simple, Mao. It's like, I have my casino account, I have my Binance account, and I have my Ledn account. Okay. And I have my Ledn account. And in over here in Ledn, I put whatever I want to put to assets that make me comfortable sleeping at night. So I know with my Ledn position, I'll sleep at night. And every so often, Mao, I'll see some interesting shiny light. I'll draw from my Ledn account to go do this, exciting trade on Binance. And then within 2 or sometimes 2 days, sometimes a week, I'll come back with half the money from Binance and instantly have regret the attempt of making a bet, and I'll put it right back to Ledn. But that's basically how I use your products. And so it's funny because it's like Ledn is the safe home base that they have. And whenever they want to scratch an itch with some, highly speculative perp or token, they'll go and take a stab at it, and most often come back regretting it.
Well, it is interesting to think about kind of this bifurcation of Bitcoiners and everything else in crypto, and obviously, again, as the DAT trend kind of sprinkles through the rest of it, it'll be interesting to see that play out in what is expected to be, if we all believe, and I'm sure maybe you're in this camp, that Q4 is going to be a big one. Certainly, if you have the growth targets for the overall Bitcoin lending market, that's tied in. If Bitcoin surges, the rest of what we've seen play out historically tends to be favorable. I do want to close, though, with kind of your expectations, and not to put you on the spot, but obviously we're seeing a lot of people talk about where Bitcoin goes from here. But given what you're seeing, given the health of maybe what you're seeing, leverage in the system in the past has not been good, but it doesn't seem like we're there yet, with a lot of room to run. So what does Mauricio say about kind of what to expect to wrap up the year, and where do you see Bitcoin headed?
I think, So I think there's too many tailwinds, right? Because right now the market's expecting, I think, 2 more cuts before the end of the year. So 2 more cuts are going to make all asset prices rally. It's why you're seeing gold at all-time highs, it's why you're seeing S&P at all-time highs, it's why you're seeing Bitcoin at all-time highs. And I don't think that changes. I don't think that stops. The other piece of that is the United States, and not just the United States, but most governments are unable to control their deficits. And that basically, the cat's out of the bag. You had JPMorgan, I think it was JPMorgan last week, coming out and say, oh, it's the debasement trade. Like Mohammed Al-Arian is saying, oh, the debasement trade. There is no faster horse in the debasement trade than Bitcoin. And the world is waking up to this idea that this isn't a story about assets performing well. This is a story about currencies collapsing. And that's really the driver of all of this. You don't have to pick stocks. You don't have to pick the right home. You don't have to pick the right bar of gold. You just have to get rid of the currency. And in this overly simplified world, if you look at gold and you think, okay, well, gold is overextended. I don't like where gold is at because it's gone up way too much. What's the next logical conclusion? And by the way, relative to Bitcoin, gold is very overextended. So I think what you're going to see right now is a small rotation, maybe not a rotation, but you're going to see Bitcoin catch up. I expect Bitcoin to close the year at 150 or north of that, and it likely continue. And I would actually challenge this idea that the 4-year cycles are over. or that the 4-year cycles will remain, right? I see some people come in and say, oh, the blow off top, and then go back to our holes for another 4 years, and bring your blankets, and we'll come back out. I don't know that it's going to be as dramatic, because theory says that as the market gets bigger, volatility drops, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've been seeing that with Bitcoin as it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. Look
Yeah.
at gold, right? I'm not saying we're done with corrections. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm suggesting is that the institutional bid, the long-term bid for Bitcoin, is a lot stronger than it used to be, right? Like if Bitcoin trades back down to 70, you're going to have groups like BlackRock looking at it now. You're going to have 10 times the number of MicroStrategy copycats looking at it now. And so there's a lot more real long-term buyers in the market today. And I just
buyers
don't
in
believe
size. Yeah, it's definitely true. And you're right to point out, I think that the idea here of kind of the gold prediction, or certainly Bitcoin's price surges have lagged gold's, and gold being an all-time high. I would be in the same camp as you. We're hearing that from a lot of smart people in terms of, hey, Bitcoin's at an all-time high. Or Bitcoin's at an all-time high, sure, but gold's has been a blow-off. And so the predictions are there, the signals are there, and so I agree. There's a lot here to be excited about, and certainly, obviously, the idea of more people holding Bitcoin and then being able to actually then use it in some of the ways that you guys are enabling at Ledn. I think it's exciting to talk about regardless. But Mauricio, can't thank you enough for being on with us, man. I think this is the first time we had you on Coinage, but excited to hear what you guys have been building and how long you've been doing it, man. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, man, no, I appreciate it. And by the way, I think this whole bidding on ad space you guys have is brilliant. I think that's a clever use of this technology. I think that's a very clever use of this technology, right?
Thank you.
I like it. I'm going to keep following it. I'm going to chat with our marketing team about it. But I just think
it'd be pretty awesome
idea.
Because I think one of the cool things about this too is, that's why we got in the space. The co-founder of Netflix, one of our backers, the idea of tokenizing media starts to allow creators to do some interesting things, starts to enable people who are watching things like this and might know the value of what we do, bid on some of this ad space. And so it's been cool to see this play out. And if you do want to let your marketing team know, there is still, for anyone watching this, 24 hours to bid on the ad space that we put on here in terms of the video component. So we've got an ad playing in this stream right now, the bottom of the screen. And these ad spaces are actually at like 90% discounts as we try and get this tool off the ground, because we just launched it. And so I think it's an exciting opportunity for anybody, really, honestly, to get in there. But it's also exciting for other people who are building in this space to support independent creators. So if your marketing team wants you, that'd be pretty dope. But regardless, either way, man, congratulations on scaling what you're doing at Ledn. I think it's exciting to see. Mauricio, be well, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Zach. Have a good one, man.
Right on. Adios to you, I say. And that's exciting. I mean, everything that you just heard from Mauricio is very much in line with what we've been hearing from a lot of guests, not just on the international front of people embracing this around the world, but also what we're hearing from institutions. And as Mauricio pointed out, the surge in gold predicting and being generally a signal of what's to come, usually in where Bitcoin moves. And so I think there's a lot to highlight there. And Mauricio also beat me to the punch on talking about what we were going to talk about to close the show, which is everything that we just saw play out. Texas, I think we have the chart of kind of the the Bitcoin one. We'll stick with that for now. Because as he said, Michael Saylor has really kind of proven the way in terms of figuring out ways to smartly and accurately leverage this idea of Bitcoin being an asset that only gets stronger over time, the apex predator, and figuring out a way to issue equity and convertible debt around it. And so there is his flywheel on the left. That's generally how it works. He issues more shares, and obviously MicroStrategy has benefited from this. Is what he's sitting on, I think. I haven't checked lately, but I'm pretty sure it's north of $25 billion in profit. Maybe I'll bring up Saylor Tracker just to get that number specifically right. But on the right side, you'll see what we're trying to do in a general, in a similar vein around attention. I know it sounds kitsch in the idea of bringing up a DAT for attention, but I really do think that this is the way in what we're trying to do here. As Mauricio said, adding tokenized ads built around the idea of what is essentially what I'm going to call an attention bond in what we're doing here, because it does entitle holders to unlock ad space in these shows over a certain period of time. So if you buy these ads, you can only use them, these ones at least, these NFTs, for October. But that gives you time to either trade them or find someone else who wants to use them and then redeem them for the month of October. We're going to be issuing more ads as NFTs for the month of November, which will be those. And so you kind of start to see where the similarities are there in terms of being an actual thing that people will use. And shout out to Keith Grossman. He did this at Time, so it's not exactly a new idea, but the idea of pulling forward future attention, what's the net present value of that attention today, ad space in the future that you could trade today, I think unlocks some very interesting components, not just for us at Coinage, but also shout out to the Rollup and Thinking Crypto who are partnering with us on this launch. And so you get into some interesting dynamics of future attention and trading those, what that does. By the way, the other piece of that flywheel, if we bring it back up, and I'm trying to be careful to not reveal certain announcements that we have coming up, but the other pieces of those flywheels are also what we use to track here at Coinage all of the views we get. And so that's what you see on the left. That's the play button meme coin that we launched that we burn every month based on how many views we get here on Coinage. So if you're new to Coinage, we just had one video cross 100,000 views with Tom Lee. That was a big one. So there's going to be a big burn coming up for all of the views we accumulate in the month of October. On Friday, actually, coming up is going to be our burn for all the views that we have in the month of September. And so right now we're tallying all those, and then we'll be burning play button on Friday. And this is the chart that we're looking at for play button, because over the weekend we did see play button hit an all-time high as people realized what was happening in this narrative of scarcity, of the idea of tracking attention, using a burn mechanic that we, the DAO, has also voted to institute. And you can track all this, by the way. I should bring up our Dune dashboard that has shown historically exactly how much play button we've burned. And we publish this and try and keep everyone up to date on everything. But I think it is kind of cool in terms of implementing a token tied to actual attention and views on YouTube and X that stem from Coinage. So if you want to check it out, Dune dashboard is up and out to track some of play button's issuances, the bonding curve that we use to calculate how many views we get and how many play button tokens that correspond to those views and how much we burn every month. And you can see the historical burns. We've already made the commitment to burn 400 million play button tokens by February. I think we're pacing pretty much in line with that. The idea here is the more you watch, the more we burn, because it is tied to you're doing this right now, so we're going to burn more play button. If you like and retweet this, more people watch and the more we burn. And you can see how the flywheel works. And what does that do? Well, more views means we can charge more in our ads, which means the NFTs going up there help out Coinage and help out the other creators we're working with. I can't say much more there in terms of the pairing between the ads and the ad sale auction tool and what we plan to do with play button, but more announcements to come in October. And of course, I'd be remiss because that leaves out the top of the flywheel, Texas. If we go back to that, that's what we launched our creator coin for, Coinage, over here on Zora. Over the weekend, we actually had the #1 creator coin on Zora. As I bring up our page, shout out to our friends over at Zora. We launched this one, I don't know, about a month ago maybe. And it's been cool to see how people trade these creator coins. And I will not lie to you, it was also cool to see the market start to appreciate what we've done here. We topped a $3 million market cap. So it was a strong week. But I do not say this lightly. Honestly, ladies and gentlemen, we are legitimately only getting started on what we can do here. There's, from what I understand, and we might be going on Zora TV soon to announce a few other things that we've tied, because look, right now, Coinage is just a creator coin tied to, as we all know, the way that the Zora flywheel effects work in terms of trading volumes. Coinage receives that. It all goes into our DAO as a community-owned cooperative here at Coinage. You buy an NFT and you own an equal share portion of the DAO and can become an active member and earn patronage dividends from what we do every year. Last year, we paid out $250 to Caucus NFT holders. Before, when Caucus NFTs were actually trading at 0.07 ETH, that means a lot of people bought them for about $200 when we first launched. patronage dividend to active members last year was actually more than that. So they're already in the green for active NFT holders who used it. So again, the Coinage Zora coin to the actual ownership mechanism, you can see where these flywheel effects exist just in general. But what I'm excited about is how we firm up and sharpen the edges around that flywheel to really make it clear exactly how one plays into the other. And so you got to stay tuned for the rest of October. And oh, by the way, we shouldn't forget the fact that we're building a real media outlet here, that you guys tuning in honestly make this all possible. And so I think it's a unique way to really reward people for their attention, to, again, open the door. This whole project was founded 3 years ago and backed by the creator of Netflix in the idea of building a Web3 native media outlet in a way that you can break down the wall between a creator and the people watching, to let them co-own this together, to vote on what we should cover, to which guests we should have on the show, to now potentially being able to buy the ad space and trade the ad space in what we do. And so, first of all, I just want to say, from everybody here at Coinage, it was actually really cool to see things pop off this weekend. And some people were like, okay, you might flip Bankless, because our creator coin, I don't know, let's go back to it over here, Texas. Where were we at before? A week ago, I think, we were trading at what is this? I don't know, a week ago we were sub 100K, right? And so it's like, okay, we're sitting over here at 85,000 market cap. What's going to happen? What are we going to do? Is this going well? And the next thing you know, things pop off and people are like, oh, maybe you'll flip Bankless. Maybe you can do that. I don't know. Let me bring up the top creators. Where's that over here? I want to bring that up too. And they're like, hey, maybe that's a thing that you could do. And lo and behold, our whole goal here is, look, we're committed to this idea of being a community-owned media outlet, right? Everyone who mints joins the DAO, and you own the IP, everything that we've done. And oh, by the way, we also run our validators. I guess I should bring that up to you. We also partnered, as I put in this thread, why we have different ways to monetize here is because we have full control over how we want to start to leverage the Coinage name and brand. And one of those things is running our own validators with our friends at Dike. And so our CoinageX Dike validators have crossed $500 million in assets staked with us, and half of those commissions, where do they go? You guessed it, right into the Coinage DAO. And so the flywheel effects exist here, ladies and gents. The more people who know the Coinage name and trust the Coinage name stake with the Coinage name, and we stand to benefit from that as well. And so I really do think if you live Web3, if you believe in Web3, if you believe that some of this shouldn't just be pure speculation anymore, and should be, I don't know, dare I say, rational ideas that could be the more attention we have on ourselves. Maybe, since Web3 exists, there's some more efficient ways to monetize that attention than just the old way of thinking about only running programmatic advertising in our stream. Really? Is that what we're still doing here in 2020? The year of our Lord, 2025? Surely we can do much more than that. And so, thus is born the Coinage attention flywheel. Maybe we show it one more time, Texas. Leave them with something. But I'm excited for what we have to come. So again, if you're new to this, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for learning a little bit more, because there's a lot more to come in how we plan to continue to drive this flywheel to unlock completely the value of what we're building here at Coinage. One more look at the leaderboard. Obviously, we're neck and neck with Docker. It doesn't make me feel good to know that we're not at number one anymore. And you know what? I don't even own enough. So I know Michael Saylor's always buying the top. Your boy out here who sits in the anchor seat, I'm not launching my own creator coin anytime soon. So I guess we should be clear that, look, this is the flywheel, and that's pretty much all we got. There's no intention to do anything else. We spent 3 years kind of building this plan to get here. It would be a disaster to ever change from that. And of course, obviously, the DAO votes on a lot of the things that we do here to make sure that we are following the plans of the Coinage people, by the Coinage people. But it pains me to see Coinage below Docker on this leaderboard. So after being top dog, someone else was asking Zora if they're allowed to get naked on streams. I don't know if there's an answer to that, but I'm not getting naked on these. We're not going to stoop solo, but I do want to reclaim that throne and continue to show you guys what we can do. But nonetheless, stay tuned. The burn for play button coming up on Friday will be exciting to kind of show you how that all works. And certainly if you go to the Dune dashboard, you can see we've already burned tens of thousands of dollars of play button to commit to this flywheel and what we're building here at the only community-owned media outlet in the world of Web3. You can co-own it along with myself and the co-founder of Netflix, John Wu. Maybe we should start sharing a little bit more about who owns this with us. Maybe stay tuned for that. Until then, we'll see you again soon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in, and go to Coinage.media to stay up to date on all the big headlines in Web3. More details to come in the month of October. Until then, I'm Zach Guzman, signing off. We'll see you again soon.